transition is with us, and it's here to stay. Global economics, technological changes at the speed of light, and social values that are changing faster than any time in the past. To help guide you along your journey in this fast-changing life, the show with a purpose: to empower, to enlighten, to educate, and to entertain. The show that offers you a friend, a guide in the most transitional time in the history of the human race. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here's your host, Steve Beeman.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Steve Beeman Show. We are, as always, pleased and honored to be with you to share this time with you on an empowering journey to wherever we can take you. And for us, it's a joy and a pleasure. We work hard every week to make sure the content we bring you is real, substantive, and can help you truly regenerate a better life for you and your family. We've got an exciting show today. We're on the letter G. So at the bottom of the hour, Carol's Words of Wisdom. Well, you get to wait and find out what the letter G will be. There are a lot of really good opportunities for that. And in the Master Your Mind segment, we're going to, as Carol asked, we're going to open up a little bit of me and my philosophy of life. And then in the Master Your Money, we're talking about gold. Do we still have the Midas touch? So, Carol, we've got a great show, and it is truly one for the record books.
Yes, it is, and I'm very excited today, Steve, because I believe the letter G and the show around it are going to be hugely important to everyone. So, you know what, folks? Grab a paper and pencil, because you might find something here that you want to remember. And, of course, you could always go to stevebeeman.com and watch and listen to the replay, but Get those questions, write them down, write down notes. What do you think of that, Steve?
I love the idea. And don't forget, you can write us at carol@stevebeeman.com or steve@stevebeeman.com if you have questions about this show or anything else we do.
All right, Steve, here's the deal. You wrote an article in Epic Times.
My weekly article.
And this is looked at the new department in our federal government, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. That sounds like they're going to protect us. I'm so excited.
Well, here we go. And let me say right off, we're not going to get political here. This isn't a statement of anything other than policy. So as you go, you can get mad at us for maybe not being political, but I want to talk to the heart of this matter. And Carol, you hit the key. This is one of these things that on paper looks so good. Let's keep the big bad banks off of people's backs.
Come on, the big bad banksters against the poor little guy. I mean, come on, we don't we the consumer need protection?
Well, we're obviously not capable of our own protection, right? But anyway, yeah, the genesis of this goes back to the debacle of 2008 and 9, which the mortgage markets melted down. As a result, a lot of people were hurt. People lost their homes. People lost value in their retirements. The markets dropped by 50%. So everybody starts screaming, fraud, fraud, fraud. Somebody did this to me.
Well, we could talk about the laws that took place prior, because anybody that could fog a mirror can get a mortgage.
Well, we could talk about desktop underwriting. Exactly. But my point being, coming out of that, you had the Dodd-Frank legislation that went into the banking communities and began to regulate banks. Well, guess what? As a result of that, we went from 13,000 regulated banking institutions 8 years ago to 10,000 today. It's a drop of 25% the number of banks.
But weren't banks are always regulated by the FDIC and the federal government anyway.
They were, but what the federal government did is so raise the cost of the bureaucracy of regulation that we put all the small banks out of business. So we did the exact opposite result of the intention.
Bureaucracy always kind of impedes innovation and growth, doesn't it?
There's no question about it. It's a drag on the economy. It's why we're growing at 2% a year. But this article was focused on something that gets a lot of bad press, and that's these payday loan stores and these title loans and contract loans places.
Well, now that's predatory lending, isn't it?
Well, the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? My point of the article is that they've now come out through the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, and they've said, we're going to overly regulate this because we can't stand people being charged 30% a month for a short-term loan. Okay, I get that. It doesn't feel good. But as you know with me, I'd like to think about it rather than just feel about it. And if you look at the reality, the people who borrow the money at these rates like the businesses. Here's an example. I lost my job. I can't make my rent payment, but I have another job starting in 30 days. I need $1,000 to tide me over. Okay, the banks aren't going to touch them.
Right.
They just don't. Credit cards typically don't let you take that much cash, or in a lot of these circumstances, people are maxed out on
their credit cards.
So they're in an emergency. They're in a genuine financial emergency. So they can go to a title loan place, hawk their title on their car, pull out $1,000. Yes, it cost them a couple $100 to do it. But you know what? It tides them over until they get back on their feet.
So then they go ahead. They hack the title on their car. They get
a check for $1,000 within 10 minutes.
And now they can pay their rent.
Right. And so if you look at this business, and this is where government intentions are so misdirected, what's happening here is the people who need the money the worst. And if you poll them and you look at statistics on their satisfaction rates, people who use these title loan and contract loan places love them.
Really?
Small businessmen who have taxes due, who I need an emergency loan of a few $1,000s. Again, no bank's ever going to go there. But they can go to these places. They can get money out. Yes, it's expensive. They know it. We know it. It's a free transaction. It's private, right?
Well,
you want my money, you're going to pay me for it.
Ding, ding, ding. These are private institutions.
Absolutely.
But are they under the federal regulation of lending?
They're under state regulations, but they're not regulated as to the fees they can charge. So they can charge, and some of them do, 400% or 500% annual.
But nobody has to. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. No one's holding a gun to these people's head and saying you've got to go to this place and get these loans.
Carol, you're exactly right. And that's why most of the people who use these things like them. So anyway, this wonderful new organization started by the senator from Massachusetts. What's her name? The one that says she's an Indian.
Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah, she says she's an Indian because she has high cheekbones.
Oh, yeah.
You've got high cheekbones. You might be Cherokee.
You know, people think I'm part Indian, yes.
Well, see, go get a minority loan.
There
anyway,
you go.
The point being, she's out there telling people, we're going to help you little people. You don't know how to run your own lives. I sit in my ivory tower. And by the way, all of her money came from flipping foreclosed houses, but that's another thing.
Oh, really?
Right, talk about predators. But anyway, so what they're doing is they're putting in new regulations on these things as to how they can lend the money, how they can roll over the loans, how they can do things, all to protect the little guy who's too stupid to know how to run his own life. Here's the problem. They're going to do two things. They're going to raise the cost because the businesses will pass on the cost of this regulation.
Do.
And they'll shorten supply. There'll be less money available for the people who need it the most. It's sick. But Washington comes in, and again, this isn't a political statement. It's a policy statement. They come in with an intention to help. The only winners here, the lender didn't win, the borrower didn't win, the bureaucrats win. They go and pat themselves on the back and say to their family, look at what good I did today. I helped protect the little guy. All they did was hurt him.
Well, you in the article, you wrote something that George McGovern said in 1972 in 1988.
I wish I had the time to read the whole thing. Here it is in a synopsis. George McGovern was the progressive wonder boy in the 60s and 70s. He ran for president against Nixon in 72, and this is a guy who was big government all the way. Okay, he leaves politics. He goes out on the speaking circuit. He makes a little money with a book, makes a little money, decides he's going to buy a hotel that has a conference facility and his dream, right?
Okay.
Small business, wonderful idea. So he gets into this business. It folds within a couple of years. And his comments, and I want everybody to understand, this is from a government politician who'd spent his life in politics, who talked about regulating business day in and day out. He came out and said, I wish I'd have known when I was in Congress what I know now having run a business and the challenges businesses face. It was regulation that put him out of business.
Well, you know, I think your best politicians, quote unquote, would be business people.
Or regular people, right? Who live our lives in the real world. And
you know, you can't have a job from cradle to grave on taxpayer dollars and understand how the taxpayer actually feels.
You can't.
Or thinks.
We live in this real world where the rubber does meet the road, and we're providing for our families, for our friends. We're trying to help our parents if you have elder care issues.
Yep.
And these people sit in their ivory tower and they tell us how to be helped. Give me a break. They just need to go back to their little tower, sit there and quit being so arrogant like Marie Antoinette telling us how to live.
Well, Steve, their intentions are good.
And the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Touche. That's exactly what you wrote in the article. And that's on Epic Times, which could be seen at stevebeeman.com.
It is. And if you go, Epic Times actually put it on their front page. This was a popular article, so I was very happy about that.
Well, that's awesome.
But we've got a great rest of the show, too. In the Master Your Mind, I'm going to open up my philosophy of life. And Carol, we get to talk about my 5 paths.
I am very excited to talk about the 5 paths because that's really foundational principles, and they're fantastic. And stay tuned and go grab that paper now
Exactly.
for sure.
And then we've got the G word at the bottom of the hour, and we've got a wonderful Master Your Money segment. This is going to be a show for the record books. So, folks, we're glad you're with us, and it is a wonderful time. So thank you once again. I'm Steve Beeman with my co-host, Carol Parisi, and thanks for being with us on The Steve Beeman Show.
We'll be right back.
It is good to be alive, and welcome back, folks, to this part of the show where we're going to master your mind and take you, what did we say last week, take you on a journey to the center of your mind.
Take you on a journey to the center of your mind. And how could you not be positive and uplifted with that music? I'm just
Seriously.
dancing here.
And this is a fun show because we get to editorialize. I mean, we always have notes on what we want to say, but it's fun when we can kind of go off the beaten path.
And we do.
And Carol, as you know, I have preached, since you've known me certainly, this concept that life is a complicated thing. We're in a time of transition like never before, and people need to have a methodology to put life into perspective.
Steve, when you and I first met, this was a huge conversation that we discussed. And it was amazing that I didn't know really that you had something called the path to prosperity, the 5 paths. And each of those paths is intrinsic to an ideal and a great life. I guess, should we talk about the 5 paths first, or do you want to talk about how you got there?
I think it's all important, and this gets into you wanting to talk about my life so bad. So let's open up my life. Here's a philosophy of life. I've got a video up on it on stevebeeman.com that I shot. Took me like 6 different times to get it right. But
Steve's a perfectionist. He thrives for excellence.
As my marketing people are.
But you also thrive for excellence.
I do,
which is
in everything.
huge.
So,
which is huge.
Carol, I think it's a huge thing. So I'm anxious to talk about it with you.
Okay, so the 5 paths. Should we want to go over them really quick?
Let me tell you what they're. And this, by the way, I don't claim to have a uniqueness here. I think this is, like we were talking offline about, this is nothing new. It's been known for 100 years, but it's a way to look at things maybe that's beneficial. So yeah, the 5 paths started as 4 what I called legs to a stool. And they were your physical well-being, your emotional well-being, your intellectual well-being, and your spiritual well-being.
Well, and I love the story that you, being the loving father, you with 6 children, you had flu situations quite frequently, and you would sit there with the kids. They didn't know what was going on when they were young, and you started talking to them about their lives through these 5 paths. So go ahead and you tell that story.
Right. So if you can picture having little kids, we've all been there, right?
Daddy, I don't feel good. My tummy hurts.
Exactly.
I'm going to throw up. I'm going to die.
Okay, so what we did is I would take them down. They'd lay on the couch, and I'd lay on the floor with a bucket. And in order to keep their spirits up, I'd say to them, listen, you got 4 legs to the table. Mm-hmm. One is your physical leg, and that's gone. You know, you're physically out. We know that. It's just bad. But that doesn't mean your intellectual side is gone. You can understand what's going on with you. You cognitively can process that this is short term.
You weren't using those words with your
Absolutely
little 3.
was.
Were you really?
Absolutely. But then I'd go into the emotional side, that it didn't have to take their attitude down, that faith and all the deeper things in their attitude could stay. And then clearly their spiritual side, which could give them the foundation to stand strong. So even with 3 of the legs, they could still stand.
Well, I just think that's such a good dad. That is such an that's a really good, solid dad to be able to bring it to them in this kind of, way. Because I mean, you know what? Kids don't understand it. I'm scared. Everybody, little kids, I'm scared. Daddy, I don't know what to do.
I think my
That's
kids
cool.
first just thought I was weird. but anyway, and then so as we go, I over time, it morphed into paths because I started to realize that we have roadblocks and bumps and detours. And clearly I added the fifth, which is financial.
So the 5 paths, and this is kind of the genesis of these 5 paths. And this is your CD program. It's outstanding. It's the path to prosperity.
Well, that one's just the financial path. It's been a plan to develop CDs on all of the paths.
But you have writings on the other paths,
I
on the
do.
emotional path and on the spiritual path
we have
and the intellectual.
400 what I call Beeman Insights, that about 100 in each of the other 4.
Well, it's part of a holistic life. And you were talking, okay, the 5 paths, did you mention them? Emotional, intellectual, spiritual, physical, and financial. Are any more important than the other?
At any point in time, yes.
Oh,
Because
I was not expecting that.
Well, at any point in time in your life, and anybody, if you're listening now, things can go right in one angle. You might be financially doing really well, but you feel spiritually vacant. Or you could be financially going through a really tough time, and that could take down all of the other paths. Or you could be doing fine on everything and you lose your health. Or you lose a loved one and the emotional hit. You're going through a situation of elder care now where the emotional hit's real.
Right.
So
right.
at any point in time, these 5 journeys that we're on balance off against each other.
I'm going to just share my heart. I feel the core path is that spiritual path, because if you've got a very strong faith, you could constantly ask for guidance and wisdom and discernment from your Creator.
Carol, I wouldn't deny it. It's obviously very near and dear to everything I do. But I will tell you this. I have seen it in my life where people lose their health or they lose their wealth, and their spiritual journey becomes roadblocked right then.
But
I'll tell you a quick story.
Okay.
When I was going through one of the transitions of my life in Wheaton, there was a guy, this is 2008 in the fall. The city of Wheaton went into lockdown because a guy got stopped on a traffic stop, got out, took the cop's gun, and ran into a bank.
Oy.
This guy had lost all of his money through the Lehman Brothers bankruptcy.
Okay.
By the end of the day, he'd put a bullet in his head. My point being, the financial thing got so bad that he lost all of his paths.
I don't see. I
know, it's tough.
Here's the deal. I believe. What was our word last week?
Faith?
If that faith is so strong, and faith in your Creator, which I believe is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, you know something? You press in and say, I'm going to learn something from this. I believe truly spiritual people say, our Creator uses these things to make us refined like gold.
I don't deny that, but I will tell you again, I've seen it oftentimes. So when you say, are any of these more important? To me in my life, the spiritual side is everything, because my faith in my Lord, it drives my life. But I've seen it where these things get detoured and put off into weird places where people lose faith for a time. They become a prodigal child of God, if you will. We see it in kids all the time.
Oh, when my mom died? Ho, ho, ho.
So the point is that as people look at their life, if they can start to think about their emotional, intellectual, spiritual, physical, and financial things as operating businesses, almost an operating thing. That's too cognitive, probably.
You're so logical,
I
Steve.
know. Well, it's called me Spock. But the point being, if you can do it when you have those emotional times, you can convert them to intellectual questions.
Well, that's the thing. We discussed this. Gosh, this could be a whole 3-hour
Well, it's
show.
the whole genesis of our show here.
Exactly. If you're feeling way too emotional, how do you suggest someone buck up and get to that intellectual spot where, yesterday you called me, how you doing? I'm trying to keep my peace.
Right.
And I took my mind to say, you know what? I can't control this right now. I had to get logical. I can't control this. There's nothing I can do to control this. I could only control my mind, my thoughts, my attitude. Is that a good way to control that emotional?
Absolutely. But there are times also that you have to get emotional.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Because you have to have empathy. You have to have these things. Raising kids clearly brings it up. But all of these play out in the physical area. How many of us want a healthy life? Well, you know what? You've got to take your physical path and actively make it healthy.
Well, that does require a little work
I'll
sometimes.
give you a true story. In January of 2016, my blood pressure was 150 over 110. I made a choice. I either go on medication or I start working out. I started working out. I have a trainer I use twice a week. My blood pressure now is 110 over 70.
And you're not taking any
Not taking
medication.
any medication at all.
Had you ever had any indications of high blood pressure?
No, but the stress levels of a whole bunch of things were
Right.
getting to me. And I'm just telling you, my physical path was in real trouble.
So now you've taken action.
I took action on it. I've brought it down. And that helps balance out the emotional side because I'm no longer worried. I'm no longer concerned.
Well, you're what you're doing, like we discussed last week, when you're exercising, you're working out, you are creating endorphins, and you're subsequently killing those cortisol, those stress hormones. Because
Absolutely.
we make hormones. Whatever we think, whatever we feel, you're making hormones. That's exactly what we talked about last week.
In one of our future shows, we're going to talk about the healing codes because it's all about, we were talking earlier about this cellular level fight or flight response that we get versus being at peace. And so my whole genesis on these 5 paths is it's a way for people to say, I'm going to put my life in control that I can control. And I know now how to say, okay, this is this issue. I'll deal with that issue and not let it bleed into the others.
Well, I think that's very important. And you know what? As the weeks go on with our show, we're going to go deeper into these 5 paths. We're going to unpack a lot of them for our listeners.
Absolutely. I mean, we did it with faith. We did it with all of the different things. You talk about the bottom of the hour. Speaking of which, I'm excited because we're coming up to that wonderful point in the show where Carol gives us her words of wisdom. And on the G word, folks, you're not going to want to miss this. It's an important word and a big concept. So we'll be right around the corner here with Carol's words of wisdom. Hello, my good friends, and welcome back to the Steve Beeman Show, where we hit the Carol's Words of Wisdom segment. We're talking the letter G, and Carol, take it away.
This was a very hard week to pick. Well, because there's so many great G words. I mean, there's so many great G words.
Oh, we talk grace. I mean, it's
grace, gifts, growth, gold.
Yeah.
I mean, giving. There's so many.
So what
but
did you pick?
Gratitude. Foundational principle. Foundational principle.
Oh, hey, real quick, if I might, I almost forgot to mention this segment is sponsored by our good friends at Cherry Bundy.
Cherry Bundy.
And so we hope everybody has hit their retailers. By the way, on that, I don't want to take your time, but I was just in an office building and I gave some people some of that Cherry Bundy supply that we have. They all came back to me and said, Steve, this really works. I feel really better.
We are grateful for Cherry Bundy because it does work. It helps help you sleep better and beats inflammation.
I'm just a huge fan of it. So anyway, I'll shut up for a minute and let you run.
As long as we're going to get this out.
I had gratitude.
Grateful. Well, did you know expressing gratitude is transformative? Expressing gratitude is transformative, just as transformative as expressing a complaint. Imagine an experiment involving 2 people. One is asked to spend 10 minutes each morning and evening expressing gratitude. There's always something to be grateful for. While the other is asked to spend the same amount of time practicing complaining. There, after all, is always something to kvetch about, right? One of the subjects is saying things like, I hate my job, I can't stand this apartment, why can't I make enough money? My spouse doesn't get along with me, that dog next door never stops barking, and I just can't stand this neighborhood. Whine, whine, whine. The other is saying things like, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to work. There are so many people these days who can't even find a job. I am surely grateful for my health. What a gorgeous and glorious day. I really like this fall breeze. They do this experiment for a year. Guaranteed, at the end of that year, the person practicing complaining will have deeply reaffirmed all of his negative stuff rather than have letting it go, while the one practicing gratitude will be a very grateful person. Expressing gratitude indeed can change your way of seeing yourself and the world. And that's by Deo Dulori.
You know, it's funny. We went through Think and Grow Rich, and we kind of came out with the anti-statement. What happens if you don't think and don't grow rich? On this, you can be gracious and have gratitude, right?
Right.
Or you cannot. That seems like a pretty fair.
You know, it's like we said, stuff happens, okay? But if you keep focusing on the negative, you know, example, you're driving along, all of a sudden, doggone it, there's an accident in front of you, and now you got to wait 20 minutes, or you get stuck by a train, you got to wait. How do you know that going down the line you didn't miss something worse? You know, what are you going to do? You can't control it. Now you're creating all these bad negative chemicals in your body too, which are going to make you sick.
No, there's something that, and we all know it. I mean, if you're in your car right now and you're stuck in one of the famous Chicago traffic jams, you're sitting there going, yeah, easy for you guys to say, I'm stuck here for an hour and a half. I promise you I've been there. I've been on planes, trains, and automobiles that have done some remarkable things. But the point is, if you can just take a breath and go, you know what? I can't do anything about it. I'm grateful that something didn't happen to me that caused this. I'd like to be in the accident that caused it. And it is a frame of mind.
It totally changed your mind. Here's 7 principles for cultivating gratitude. Gratitude is independent of our objective life circumstances. Okay, here's take your pen and paper. Here we go. Your circumstances are not your life. Gratitude is a function of attention. You could focus on being grateful, or you could focus on being fetchy. Entitlement precludes gratitude.
Nice word. We'll talk about that someday.
We often take for granted that which we receive on a regular basis. Isn't that sad?
Familiarity breeds contempt.
Isn't that so sad? Gratitude can be cultivated through sincere reflection. Expressing gratitude through words and deeds enhances our experience of gratitude, and our deepest sense of gratitude comes through grace, with the awareness that we have not earned, nor do we deserve all that we've been given.
Oh, man, those 7. You know what we ought to do? We ought to create a plaque from the Steve Beeman Show with those 7 principles on it.
Yeah.
And give it away to people.
That would be pretty cool.
Maybe we'll do that. You know, one of the things we forgot to mention, there's so much going on in these shows. You can tell we get excited with each other talking about it. We forgot to mention that we do have a challenge coming up for you. We've changed that to the last segment, but we want to reflect back on the challenge we asked you about last week, and we have a brand new challenge for you this week. So you definitely don't want to miss our challenge. You can imagine what it might be.
Well, we're grateful that you're listening to us, too.
Oh, my gosh. Indeed.
Please, you know what? Write us. If you have questions or comments or anything that you'd like to see from our show or anything, just please contact us. You could contact me at Carol at stevebeeman.com or Steve at stevebeeman.com.
And like the Facebook fan page. That's a way. It's kind of silly, but it's a nice way to see if we matter to people.
And go get some of your cherry
the
Bundy
cherry
juice.
Bundy. I'm telling you, you won't regret it. I could talk about that all day. But going back to contacting us, we've got the Facebook page at The Steve Beeman Show. We've got stevebeeman.com. We've got Twitter, LinkedIn. We got all these things. We just want to reach out and touch you. We want to be part of your life. We want to help become a coach, a mentor, an informative educator for you, and some entertainment, and have some fun. I mean, once a week, we get a chance to put on, you know, our best efforts to give you something entertaining.
And you know what I'm really grateful for, Steve?
What?
The Master Your Money segment. I can't wait. This
Nice
is going to be
segue.
great. This is going to be golden.
That's everything you touch. Midas turns to gold. So we're going to be right back with Master Your Money. Stick around for that, because I'm going to talk to you about how the insiders use gold to build their wealth.
Now, back to the Steve Beeman Show for insight on your money and the nation's financial future.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back as we enter this Master Your Money segment, which is sponsored, by the way, by our friend John Grebe. He's an accountant out in the Wheaton, Illinois area. And John would love to help you by phone, fax, or a personal visit with your tax situations. You can reach him at 630-653-3510, 630-653-3510, and by the Society to Advance Financial Education. And I want to re-stress, and Carol, we've talked about it, we have a dinner this Wednesday in Wheaton, Illinois at 7 o'clock. And I'm telling you, seats are really filling up.
I think you've got 2 left.
I think we got about 2 left. There's no cost. They're free, but you've got to email me at steve@stevebeeman.com to get your tickets. And we are going to be exploding the myths that run Wall Street. I've spent my life on the inside of that baseball game, and I know how it's played. And I'm going to be opening it up, looking under the hood. And the only people who are going to hate me after it are the people on Wall Street.
Uh-oh. You don't want them to hate you.
They already do.
Oh.
Believe me, they don't like this path to prosperity stuff. They're like an ignorant customer is an easier customer to handle. I'm the opposite. I'm going an empowered customer is a better customer.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
so anyway.
So, okay, here's the deal. I know in the path to prosperity in the CD program that I have, you were talking about gold. Mm-hmm. Gold is cool.
All that glitters is gold.
I love gold. I love jewelry. I love earrings. I love gold. I think it's really neat.
I like it too. I wear a gold watch.
So, but you tell our listeners a little bit about what you had in the path of prosperity, and you've got to remember.
I know the one story you want to hear. Here's the
Yes.
thing. Gold is a limited precious metal. So for history, it has had value. They've used it to produce coins. They use it to produce jewelry. They use it to produce things because it's unique. It's unusually malleable. It's conductive of electricity. You can stretch an ounce of gold so thin, I think it can reach around the world. It's got some very unique properties. So we've assigned value to it. But I want to touch on what value is because people now are hearing left, right, and every other way. Buy gold, run for the hills. It's great if the world collapses.
Well, shouldn't we buy gold? I mean, it's a commodity, right?
There is a place in a portfolio for commodities. But notice I said for commodities. That
Okay.
includes gold, silver, and a bunch of
You
other
said
things.
precious artwork.
Absolutely. But I wanted to, and this gets into the value thing. Everybody out there says, what's something worth? And I want people to rethink value. There is no such thing. It's a phantom concept. And this goes to the story that you were interested in that I brought up. And that's back in the 15th century. A tulip bulb in, I forget what country, Holland, cost more than a year's wage. Now, think about this for a minute. You can grow these in your backyard. There's no limited supply here.
But they couldn't. There was something. Why were they so? They were so rare that people were spending.
They thought they were rare.
Right.
They didn't. They had an amorphous value. The same is true with Beanie Babies in the 1990s.
Okay.
This is a non-restrictive commodity. People, for some reason, say, I'm emotionally drawn to this. I'll pay $1,000 for what intrinsically...
Limited edition. It's
Right.
a limited edition Beanie Baby. Only
But here's
5 were made.
What I don't want people to do is think gold is any different.
But there's only a certain amount of gold in the world.
Yes, but the use of gold changes. For example, we talked about graphene once, that new super material out of the periodic table. Graphene is more conductive than gold. So all of these little gold transistors and things where the gold is used, that won't need gold anymore.
Well, people don't use gold fillings anymore.
Right. So the demand for gold could industrially go down. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't make sense to own something to protect against inflation.
You had a funny word, pneumatic.
Pneumatics?
Pneumatic. See, I didn't
Yeah.
even say it
Well,
right.
it's the study of gold and coins and that. But as I said in there, and I want people to understand this, an ounce of gold in 1972 could buy you a suit from Brooks Brothers. Mm-hmm. An ounce of gold in 2016 can buy you a suit from Brooks Brothers. Mm-hmm. You didn't make any money. Yes, you held true to what is considered inflation, but you didn't make any money.
But if you would have collected, $10,000 in gold coins back in 1970,
right?
what would they be worth now?
Oh, I don't know the math. Well, $1,200, an ounce. It went from $100 an ounce or whatever it was to $1,200 an ounce, but the stock market went up 4 or 5 times that.
But there isn't the volatility. Well, I mean,
Yes,
do you ever?
there is. There's absolutely the. Let me go to this. And I, one of the myths of Wall Street, you and I've talked about it, is that people buy and hold.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
The average holding period is 20 seconds on Wall Street. They trade. The biggest money made in gold is trading. I buy low, I sell high. I sell high, I buy low.
Right. That's business, though. You buy something at a lower price and you sell
But
it at a
that's
higher
trading.
price.
That's not inflation protection.
Okay.
You're trading on short-term technical measures.
So you don't think people should have any gold in their portfolio?
This is not advice because I don't sit
You
here
don't
as an
do-
investment
right,
advisor,
right.
but in my general thinking, if I were to write a book on education about commodities, which I have, I would suggest people own 10 to 15% of their portfolios in some kind of commodity portfolio through an exchange-traded fund or through even a mutual fund, or possibly the tangible item. But the tangible item, it can get stolen. It takes a lot to store it, and it's not.
It's
all
not
that's
all
cracked.
it's cracked up to be.
It's not. I'm not against it. There are a lot of gold we have on Red State Talk Radio. One of our sponsors is a gold manufacturer, a gold line. That's fine. I believe people should consider it. I just don't buy into the fear. If the world goes so bad that gold is all that's there, I would suggest to you the value will be in a bullet.
Oh.
Think about it.
Oh.
Are you going to walk into your grocery store with an ounce of gold and say, give me a loaf of bread? No.
Okay.
It's just food for thought. Then again, to your
Okay.
point, it's in the path to prosperity. We hope everybody will write and get it. In fact, to tell you what, first 5 people who write me at steve@stevebeeman.com, I'm going to send a copy of the audio library for free.
The whole audio library?
The whole audio library.
Oh, wow.
Talk about off the cuff, but that'll work fine. Hey, when we come back, we got a great wrap-up segment. We got our challenge of the week, so stick around for that. We've got a cool challenge for you. And again, we're thankful that you've joined us here on the Steve Beeman Show.
Welcome back to the Steve Beeman Show. Well, Steve, another quick hour just flew by.
Oh, my goodness. You look back, and we talked about my Epic Times article on the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, which that was just fun.
That's a whole mouthful in and of itself.
It's an
Say
alphabet
that
soup.
again.
Consumer Finance Protection Bureau.
So in that, this is a new government agency.
Yeah.
Yay. I
Now-
bet they created some jobs
I'm
through it.
glad they protect us from ourselves. But then we went on to the foundation of the 5 paths, which that's core to everything we do here in the show. So
Well, the genesis of the 5 paths, I just love the story with your children and how you are such an awesome father. And I've got to tell you, I've met a lot of your children, and they are such wonderful young people. They're
Thank you.
They're shining, and they're just very polite. They're beautiful to look
they are
at.
wonderful kids. I'm proud of each and every one of them.
And they're on a path. They're on a path to prosperity.
I hope
and
so.
Success.
And then we came to the bottom of the hour. We talked about gratitude, which turns right into our challenge of the week.
Well, now if you were grateful every day for a year, what do you think you're doing to yourself?
I think you'd transform your life. But I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal. Let's
Okay.
just have our listeners think once a day about something they're thankful for, grateful for, and then report back to us by email on what they're grateful for.
After 7 days.
After 7 days.
What's
It's the 7-day challenge.
You know what I'd love to hear? I would love to see what people are the most grateful for.
I think it'd be fascinating.
Okay.
I'd love to see it because I know health and wealth and happiness and family and all the good things will come out. But that's really cool. And remember last week we asked you to spend some time thinking about what you're truly faithful on.
Wow.
So that was deep.
What do you have faith in?
Right. So
Yep.
we hope that you did. Next week on the show, it's the letter H. And again, I'm not about to tell you what we might do for the letter of the week or even the Master Your Money. Because, well, yeah, I will. In the Master Your Money next week, I want to talk about the headline effect.
The headline effect.
Yeah, this is part.
This is a Beemanism, isn't it? The
I
headline
don't think
effect.
so. I think it's actually a coined word in Investopedia or one of those places.
Oh.
But the point is, there's a lot of behavioral finance that's come out. Surprise, surprise, people's emotions have a lot to do with their money.
Okay.
So the headline effect is part of the psychology of money. And I want to take us down that path to awaken people to the possibilities that their psychology is overwhelming their logic and they're making decisions based on headlines.
Oh, this is going to be good. I've got some. Oh, this is going to be great. I can't wait to that.
I think it will be good. Hey, real quick, I do want to thank Jim Thompson, our producer here. Jim does a great job, folks, keeping this going.
Thank you, Jim.
And then we also want to thank our sponsors, again, the Society to Advance Financial Education, safefinancial.org.
And safefinancial.org is having an event this Wednesday.
I'm telling you, I don't know why we could do these every night and bring people in, and all we do is help. It's a not-for-profit. There's no charge to this.
Two spots available.
Yeah, you need to write me at steve@stevebeeman.com to get your spots. I'm telling you, folks, we're going to show people, and there's some capital we hope they have. We hope people coming in will have $5,000 to $10,000 to invest. Not me. I'm not getting paid to do an investing thing here. But what I'm going to do is explode the myths of Wall Street. Want to thank Cherry Bundy, of course, who's the power drink I use. And the more people I give it to, the more people love it.
Well, I've been taking my tart cherry juice every day.
It's really good stuff. They
Sleeping good.
They have a nighttime version of it, too, that has more melatonin in it.
Ah, okay.
So I'm going to do one of the normal ones in the morning, one of those at night.
Oh, there you go.
And then, of course, John Grebe, who's our friend in the accounting world at 653-3510 in the 630 area code. John is just a terrific supporter of the show and of everything I've tried to do the last many years. I want to thank him personally for that. But I hope if you have issues, you're going to check with him. So Carol and I will be back with you for another episode covering the H word, and we're just excited and looking forward to it.
And you know what? If you'd like to sponsor this show, pop Steve an email at steve@stevebeeman.com.
Well, I'd love that. And folks, as we do from our heart to your heart, we thank you for being here. It's been our great pleasure, and we do look forward to being with you for another edition of the Steve Beeman Show.
Have a great week.